Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thanks again for joining me here. Welcome aboard to the new subscribers, of course, that came on after watching yesterday's video. Congratulations again to our community here for some nice profits on our Bitcoin short. We're at about 27% so far here with that short on target one. Obviously, there's more meat left on the bone here. I do feel we're going to continue a bit lower. I got the question a lot overnight, essentially some DMs just asking where are we at with Bitcoin? How much lower do you think we're going to go? So we're going to go ahead and cover that here today. Be sure to stick around. We're going to cover some altcoins as well. Let's go ahead and take a look. All right, folks, before we jump into the back-end data, quick reminder, hit the like button. Please comment below if you get a chance. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new to the channel. And obviously make sure that you enable alerts too, because I do post my videos every morning close to the same time, but it's plus or minus an hour generally, just depending on the day, right? Obviously, I have a little one and a lot of little things going on, so there's the reasons for that. Now, regardless of that fact, let's take a quick look here. We got a ton of buy orders here, essentially below the price. So we can see that 95,000, low 95K range here is essentially an area of interest, right? So it doesn't mean we're just going to instantly bounce or recover, but it does suggest that there's a higher probability of the price slowing down when we enter that lower 95K range. All right, so just something to kind of be mindful of. When we look at all sectors, everything's red right now. There's nothing really super outrageous in the back end we need to look at. When we look at liquidation here, kind of quick refresh, we can see 24-hour liquidation is looking like 95,000 is a pretty distinct probability. Okay, market makers are generally favored to sweep those levels there. All right, same thing as well with a macro 2 here. Now, I'm not going to scream to high heavens like some people probably are, saying that we're going to see, 87, 85, 84K, even in the 70K range here right away. All right, that's probably going to happen at some point, but I don't think it's going to happen right away. All right. Now, am I bearish on Bitcoin? No, not at all. It's just there's a lot of liquidation down there, and it makes sense for us to hit that at some point. Once more, 86K is that lower chunk. But that's a long ways away. More immediate, more important is 95,000 or 94.7. That looks like to be like kind of the next outlier here on the 30-day time frame. And just to touch on the 7-day too, I kind of skipped forward here. We got a lot more closer liquidation here. 93,000 is kind of that second outlier outside of 94.7. So easy way to understand it, 93,000 to the current price point is that range of liquidation that could essentially be hit next. Now, I want to emphasize the word could because we got a fair value gap below the price. It's not like a guarantee it's going to happen, but there's more incentivizing factors leading us to that potential reality. All right, take a look at the overall open interest on the right-hand side. 94,300 is that kind of that local support. That's once more previous high, working as a potential new low for us. We did see that already happen though. So if you look at the price action on the hourly, the price did retest that after hitting that upper 95, 96K range. Before it legged up, of course, to 97 and some change last night, right? So all in all, at this point here, we're in pretty good shape. We got a lot of support below the price. Liquidation long delta is still quite high. So I don't really think we're in a position right now where we're going to see a significant downtrend. I think range bound between 94 to 97, 98K as a rough estimate is a distinct probability until we kind of figure things out. All right. Ideally, we range bound in that area, consolidate effectively in that range, and we have a little bit of range bound trading for the next week or two. Then we have that nice bullish rectangle breakout, which we kind of saw here recently with that support at 90 to 92,000 based on that local high working as a new low with that cup and handle pattern. You've been following my channel for a while, you'll know what I mean by that. I called that out a couple weeks ago just as a potential reality, and it inevitably became valid because key level supports held. Now, speaking of support, if we look at liquidation, there's not a lot here. 94,000 is kind of a big outlier. So once more, there's some things pointing towards 94K. And we look at open interest, the delta here, we're at 80%. Generally speaking, when that's high and we have a low percentile for true retail longs, that does incentivize the price to more so sustain its current price point and or go higher. So open interest being high, that's generally a favorable sign. Now, looking at the daily time frame too, we want to understand here as well. Previous highs working as new lows. Once more, that $94,000 range was only tested one time. There is fair value below the price as well too. So when we look at the daily time frame, we want to recognize rejected off 70 in the RSI as per usual, kind of that overextended state there, and essentially pulling back now. It's standard, right? That's why we shorted at 97,400. Because it was just kind of like that key level. All liquidation locally had been swept. There's really no reason for the price to go much higher outside of a fundamental catalyst pushing it higher, which is what kind of led us there in the first place, right? With the tariff news there essentially getting delayed. So All that being said, we have some positive contributing factors here. I want to kind of reaffirm that. But it doesn't mean we're just going to go straight up because of that, right? A lot of folks seem to think that crypto moves in one direction or it can only go straight up or straight down. It does that for brief periods of time, right? And for right now, the brief period of time is down because we had a lot of brief periods of up, right? It's just kind of that natural, what goes up must come down here. Okay, so to clarify, from 90,000 to what, 97.8 as a rough estimate there, just say 90, let's say 98,000. We saw about a 9% continuation from Bitcoin, and that lasted from Monday through Wednesday. Okay, so in a 48-hour period, we saw a pretty significant continuation higher, right? That caused a lot of positivity for altcoins, but they're pulling back too now, right? The reality sets in. So try not to be a perma bull or a perma bear. If you go with the flow, you're going to find much more success. All right. And the flow right now is tentatively down. All right. So that being said, previous high, 94,000 range, again, 94 to 94.5, that area of support is likely to be retested here soon based on multiple things we've looked at here so far. We lost 70 in the RSI. That suggests you should have secured profits on your long position sometime last night. We also see stochastic swinging down with money flow index remaining high. High MFI is good. That speaks to the amount of volume we're seeing here with our liquidation long delta, but it also implies that late longs are probably going to get hammered right now, right? That's just how market makers are. They're securing profits. It's it's not people like you and I securing profits. If it was up to people like you and I, Bitcoin would be over $1 million by now, right? Just because everyone just keep on buying. That's what people know. But market makers know when to sell, and that's usually when a lot of people FOMO in, and you see social media super active, saying that we're going to see alt season and the 4-year cycles revived and all that garbage. So just be careful. That's all I can say. Right now, it's best to presume we're going to go a little bit lower, but I don't necessarily think we're going to see a break of 94,000 for the first attempt. I think that we're probably more likely, as we saw here on the 4-hour time frame, to see some kind of back test there, potentially to the upside. Now, another thing to watch out for here, and this is just kind of something I just saw here right now. I doubt it's a guarantee, but you never truly know. We could be in the throes of a head and shoulders on the lower time frames. Okay, so just it's a potential reality for us. We see a pivot or a bounce off 94,000. I don't think it's like mega bullish, right? It would just be kind of par for the course up until the next key level resistance, which is approximately 97. All right, anyways, those are all things there, food for thought. I hope it makes sense and I described it correctly. If you haven't yet already, again, subscribe, like, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff. Don't forget to join us over at Bitunix too, folks. We got an awesome benefit here. Every single month we have a new promotion. We unlock significant rewards every time we have higher volume. And most of our traders are able to hit that 50 to 100,000, sometimes $300,000 trading volume, right? And that unlocks some pretty good rewards. So be sure to check that out. Links down below for that if you're curious. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Just know I'll never direct message you first. So if somebody's knocking on your door trying to do a friend request from Crypto Cash, it isn't me. Okay, I'll gladly communicate with you. Just initiate the conversation first, and we go from there. Only use the contact information below. Please be safe. Scammers suck, and there's no reason for life to suck because you get scammed, right? All right. Thanks again. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. All right, folks, let's take a quick look here at Ethereum first, kind of get a baseline of what's going on. Obviously, we see a pretty significant selling candle. Bitcoin's pulling back consistent with the rest of the market. So nothing super outrageous here. What we want to pay attention to is to see if about this 30, basically the 30, 3280, that local low here holds, right? That's going to be an important thing for us, right? Now, just because that level holds doesn't mean we're just going to go straight back up, but that would be kind of a sign that key level support range has been broken, right? And once more, local ranges are just important to pay attention to and recognize if you're going to be range bound trading, which essentially is a good idea right now in most cases. Bitcoin's probably establishing a range between 94 and 97, just say 98,000, right? So a large range there, essentially bouncing up and down, and ETH is so far 3280, upwards of about 3,400. Okay, so kind of like that key level resistance at 34. But as we can see, even though ETH is pulling back, you look at Bitcoin on the left-hand side. This is a 15-minute time frame, by the way. We're seeing a pretty significant lower low pattern for Bitcoin, which suggests that Ethereum should essentially bounce here in the relative near future if Bitcoin bottoms out. And that basically just tells us with parallel lows here for ETH, and basically a situation where we're seeing descending trend here for Bitcoin, that is generally a favorable pairing. Okay, so I like to look at that and identify that. So kind of just put that in the back of your mind right now. For the moment, this could change at any time, but for the moment, Ethereum is looking like it wants to essentially do much better than Bitcoin. It did leg up pretty significantly. There's a lot of fair value below the price, so please understand that. Local support based on open interest is 32.65. That's consistent in a lot of ways with 32.80 because it's kind of that local range, right? Having said that, let's actually refresh here, make sure we get the right info because the price had moved a little bit since I updated this last. We are looking at about 12 billion liquidation long delta, suggesting that shorting this coin is generally a bad idea. But also, there's a lot of meat left on the bone too, and market makers recognize that, so they could very well push the price action down lower, right? So just be mindful of that. But overall, let's take a look at the daily time frame and kind of see where we're at. Actually, I forgot to look at liquidation. There's still a chunk of liquidation at 34.50. Not a heck of a lot below, a little bit just below our local low here. So 32.70 is kind of that little chunk there. Now, daily time frame, just understanding here, fair value gap is low as 31.60. Could possibly see that filled. Fair value gaps are not always filled though. Please keep that in mind. Just like CME gaps, we got a CME gap for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. In fact, Solana has two of them. They're just kind of hanging out there, right? Mainly because the market's been pretty well bullish, and there's no reason to, just try to short to those levels because they may not happen. So you see here, previous fair value gap as low as 3,000 still is yet to be filled. There is a CME gap as well at 3,000 too. So just be mindful of that. We got a lot of volume support at 3,000 also. So tons of confluence at 3K. If we do see a retest of 3,000, be more than happy to consider along there, almost in the blind just because of how much confluence we have there. Once more, folks, trade on confluence, not magical Fibonacci retracement levels or these stupid Elliott wave idiots. There's so much tomfoolery out in the market right now because they're trying to basically I wouldn't say they're trying to trap you, but they're trying to get you to think that trading is easy. And really, truthfully, it isn't. Majority of us have difficulty with it. And I'm included in that too, because I struggled for a long time. But eventually I discovered that patience is important and you got to have, trade with more confirming factors than less confirming factors, and you don't go on these gut feelings, right? Now, you do have gut feelings after 20 plus years in the industry, which I do have now, but once more, that's basically just kind of looking at patterns that I've seen and looked at for a long time. All right, anyways, the whole concept there is that if you want to be a better trader, consider joining our free Telegram Discord, links down below for that, or consider joining our Trading Academy community signals group. It's all there for you if you want it. Just make sure you be careful and cautious in who you trust nowadays, including myself too. Make sure you keep watching the videos and understand that I'm not totally full of garbage before you consider taking any of my trades. All right. Okay. That said, 4-hour time frame summary here is that 3,200, low 3,200 range is that lower area of fair value for Ethereum. Okay. Basically, I'm suggesting we could see a short-term correction. This is going to require Bitcoin to hit like 94,000 though. Okay. Or move towards that. For right now, we can presume on the lower time frames that buying in at 3280 makes more sense than shorting to 3100 or 3200. Okay, so just some friendly advice there. All that said, all the indicators are indicating that we're progressing lower here on the short term. We're still over 50 on the RSI, though we have not broken bearish whatsoever. There's a lot of reasons why we're more likely to go higher than lower this coin, but it is going to require Bitcoin to stop pulling back. Okay, that's just the bottom line. So depending on how Bitcoin performs, is going to establish a continuation or a support here for ETH here very soon. I'm interested. What are your thoughts? Do you think ETH is going to continue to go lower and sweep all that lower liquidation, or more so that fair value? Or do you think we're going to go up to 3,400 and beyond? I'd love to hear it. Comment below. Quick heads up to our traders. We got a 15% discount on trading fees if you use my link to register through Bitunix. Links down below in the description. All right, folks, quick look here at Solana. Wow, it is not looking very good. Just a quick bumper sticker summary of what's going on here. Obviously, there's a lot to be seen here. So let's go ahead and double check and kind of go from there. Let's quickly understand our side-by-side comparison and just kind of recognize where we're at here. First of all, Solana on the 15-minute time frame looks pretty synonymous in a lot of ways with Bitcoin, only almost probably like 2x the Bitcoin at the downside. It's not super substantial, but it certainly looks like it wants to continue to pull back. That said, I would be on the lookout for a dead cat bounce, or more importantly, something that looks a little something like this, where the price action comes up to the local high, the local low as a new high and rejects out. That's generally what I like to look for a bearish backtest of a previous high. or sorry, I keep misspeaking, previous low rather, that is essentially considered to be a new high. You can see actually for almost 45 minutes here, we saw the price action kind of hang out before it lost that support. So if we do see a retest, it's best to presume that's going to be the new resistance. Once more, that's synonymous in a lot of ways with 144, 143 and some change. Okay, so just a little area of interest there. Be mindful of. We take a look at the back end here. 140 is support, so keep in mind we're not like in a terrible situation here. We got a lot of support below the price. So if you do end up shorting, tighter margins makes a lot more sense. A lot of folks will use higher leverage and lower position sizing. That's generally what I've been doing lately. A lot of my trades here, for example, like Bitcoin shorts, 26% there. What was it? We had a previous Bitcoin long, 66%. There's a handful of other trades. I know we did more than that. Yeah, Solana and Sui as well, short and long, hitting both directions, but these are all, for the most part lately, they've been 20x leverage trades with very low margin, okay? Obviously, I'll increase my leverage with, or sorry, I'll increase my margin with lower leverage and obviously confidence too, but there's a lot of higher risk trades going on right now just based on the market being the way it is. So just heads up, quick disclaimer, in case you're not familiar with my trade signals, that's kind of how that works. A quick heads up too as well. Liquidation delta for Solana is it's in the green still, right? So once more, it's inherently more risky to consider shorting because of that. But if you look at this liquidation here, big chunks of liquidation as low as 130. Or sorry, 132. Now, I think the probability of seeing 132 for Solana is pretty low unless Bitcoin runs to 94 or lower. If we don't see 94K for Bitcoin, Solana should start to bottom out soon. But once more, it's pretty safe to say that Bitcoin's going to go a bit lower here in the relative near future. There's tons of opportunity there. Either way, 139 is that local area of liquidation here in the last 7 days. It's giving us perspective that, hey, Solana has more incentive to go lower than higher just because there's profits to be taken, okay? So that's kind of what these candle wicks are here as well. Now, as far as why that's happening, I'm not sure exactly. There may be a fundamental catalyst involved here. If so, comment below. I'd love to hear it. I don't follow the news as much as I should, but generally speaking, at this point, daily time frame for Solana is still looking positive, right? We had this pretty significant uptrend with a pullback there to bounce off that 135 range. Now we're pushing up to 147 and some change. Even though we took a long time to break through 145, we broke down below it pretty quick, right? So that did not work as a new support, which is oftentimes what should happen. But you got to understand too, folks, like the market the way it is right now, Bitcoin ran a lot faster than it should have, and Solana really didn't pump quite as hard as it should have as well, right? Therefore, implying that the bulls, while they're still in control, there's still a ton of profits to be taken here, and it makes a lot more sense to see this 138 to 140 range next. All right, so 4 hour time frame. Let's go and look at that here next. Just to clarify the daily though, we're just seeing these natural capitulation, very consistent in a lot of ways with Bitcoin. High money flow index, but low RSI, or at least RSI is tapering off towards 50, which is honestly favorable. I like to see that. I prefer that because then when you take a long, it's going to have much more sticking power than kind of trying to long the top, right? All that being said here, 4 hour time frame, quickly to note for our fib levels, halfway mark there is roughly 140 and 138 is that area of confluence. So here's what confluence looks like. We got more volume piling up here. The most amount of interest people have in Solana is 139. And we also see a 0.618 fib level, which is just kind of a common area of retracement for this uptrend. So when those things are combined, generally speaking, you find favorability there. And what that means isn't that you short to that level. It suggests that if you consider a long there, you'll probably have more success considering that the price will probably bounce off that level, right? Could very well be a situation like this here. We got once more kind of a head and shoulders pattern playing out for Bitcoin as well, at least tentatively. So there's possibilities there. So the easy way to understand it is that there's confluence at 139, and that's a potential area to consider for either long or short, depending on the direction you're heading, right? Short target or a long consideration for entry. All that being said, 4 hour time frame is letting us know we're still over 50 on the RSI. We haven't broken bearish just yet. Inherently, once more, slightly more risky to consider a short, but I'm still leaning more towards this happening. In fact, it's happening right now. Look at that. A bullish backtest there. Sorry, bearish backtest of 135 and some change. Sorry, 143.50 rather. I cannot speak today, do apologize for that. But anyways, the concept remains the same here. We're seeing a pretty consistent downtrend here, and albeit, Bitcoin pushing right back up towards 97,000, I think the likelihood of us breaking past the local high of 98K is pretty low. So maybe wait for the price action to continue a bit higher before you consider shorting, or just know that this is feeling more like a trap. All right, so those are my thoughts on Solana. What are yours? Comment below. All right, folks, quick look at XRP, just seeing what's going on here on the back end. Let's go ahead and start with the comparison first here. Just to quickly note, we can see this local low here of roughly 208, potential support area for us. We see some confluence there where the price action has difficulty crossing that level. Keep in mind though, Bitcoin just pumped irregularly, but we didn't see a significant pump from XRP. In other words, this sell-off here right now is looking a lot worse than this one right here. Okay, so it leads me to believe that XRP is still a little bit on the weak side, weak-handed, and let's go ahead and double check the back end to see if there's any areas of confluence. 206 is that lower area of potential support there. That's kind of the previous range low. We can also see liquidation delta has shifted bearish. So most coins are looking pretty bullish right now, where we got a bearish divergence in XRP. So there's that in combination with this significant liquidation level at roughly this 203 to 201 range. All right, so that's kind of a big deal there in the overall sense. So just be mindful of the fact that there's a lot more reason for the price to pull back for this coin than to go up, but it also requires Bitcoin to continue lower. So if Bitcoin goes higher, we'll probably see a pump from XRP, right? So for the most part, be vigilant in how you're trading Bitcoin and or understanding how Bitcoin works, because that's a very important factor here when you trade this coin. All that said, daily time frame tells us we got some confluence at 209 right here with that point of control here. There's a lot of volume accumulation in that range, right? So it just kind of reinforces support below the price. So we might not actually get like a significant correction to the downside, right? But for the most part, that's a positive sign with more confluence with moving averages below the price and also maintaining above 50 in the RSI. So if we lose 50 in the RSI, we continue to slowly bleed out. Maybe a different story, but for right now, the daily time frame looks decent. I wouldn't call it bullish. It's mostly consistent with the rest of the market, but it is positive nonetheless. Taking a look here at 209, we can see here as well that local support range there based on the volume. And then when we look at the 4-hour time frame, we're below all moving averages here, at least the important ones that kind of indicate further upside or downside. And we're also under 50 in the RSI. So unlike most other coins right now, still showing strength on the 4-hour, XRP is showing weakness, right? But there's that. There's also a combination of weakness here too, where we got a significant amount of divergence with this area here below the price, basically letting us know that we got some pretty good overextension, and a pivot and a bounce from here seems likely as well. So we're in an interesting place. It's a unique situation here for XRP, but for the most part, it could literally go either way. So if you want to short the bottom here, be very careful. Just recommending low leverage, low position size. There's liquidation and more reasons for the price to go lower, but we are seeing this potential slowing pressure here, and this bottom here starting to form at 209 to 208. So those are generally favorable signs. It really depends on how you look at it, but for the most part here, it's kind of a mixed bag here for XRP. I'd love to hear your thoughts though. Why don't you give me your unbiased opinion on XRP? What do you think? Links down below for more information if you're curious about becoming a better trader as well. I have to mention that because folks tend to forget. We also got an awesome benefit right now through Bitunix. Really cool rewards here. We got upwards of $50,000 in rewards based on trading volume, and our high volume traders will hit those marks. So if you just use my link to register down below, you'll always be eligible for future trading competitions and bonuses. Be sure to check it out when you can. All right, folks, have a good rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.